Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire supported by Glenlivet Books. On the 23rd of August, the chief scientist of the World Health Organization, Soumya Swaminathan, told me in an interview that she believed Covaxin would get emergency use authorization by the WHO by the middle of September. It's now early October, that authorization hasn't happened, and no one can say when it will. Separately, on the 30th of September, that's 2 days ago, Balram Bhargav, the head of the Indian Council of Medical Research, said that all Covaxin data had been given to the WHO. But on that date itself, we received a text message from a senior official of the WHO, which clearly explained that the WHO needs further clarification and details from Covaxin. I'm going to read out the text message we received. There are many queries and a bit more back and forth than was expected. So if there are many queries, that clearly means the WHO needs further details and clarifications, and that could also suggest that they have concerns about the data Covaxin has given the WHO. So today we ask, does the World Health Organization have a problem with Covaxin? My guest is the president of the All India People's Science Network, Dr. Sabyasachi Chatterjee. Dr. Chatterjee, I'm going to deliberately start with a couple of general questions to set the scene. After that, I'll come to specifics and details. It's 3 months since Bharat Biotech published in a preprint paper the phase 3 results of Covaxin. That happened on the 3rd of July. It's now the 2nd of October. 3 months have passed, and as yet, the World Health Organization has not given emergency use authorization for Covaxin. Does that 3-month delay suggest the WHO has problems with Covaxin?
I believe that there are problems which the WHO finds. Our idea about the Covaxin is based on the preprint that they had published, which on 3rd of July. And WHO, if that makes the foundations on which it is based, WHO's judgment would also scrutinize, and definitely there are problems and hence the delay.
Now, I'll come to the problems that you believe arise out of the preprint paper because you believe they lie at the bottom of the WHO's concerns. But let me ask you one more general question, and I'll do so by drawing comparisons with other vaccines. 6 weeks after Pfizer announced its phase 3 results, Pfizer got emergency use authorization from the WHO. In the case of Moderna and in the case of AstraZeneca, 9 weeks after they announced their phase 3 results, both of them got emergency use authorization from the WHO. But in the case of Covaxin, 12 weeks have passed and there's been no clearance from the WHO. Clearly, the process for Covaxin has already taken 4 weeks longer than AstraZeneca and Moderna. It's taken 6 weeks longer than Pfizer. Does that comparison suggest that the WHO has problems with Covaxin?
Yes, that it suggests that, because if that be the normal time scale within which WHO has granted to other manufacturers, then this delay definitely it is because of something which is found inadequate. So that is what I would suggest has happened.
And bearing in mind that this is emergency use authorization that has been sought, one would imagine the WHO would act on an emergency basis and time would be of the essence. It clearly was time of the essence in the case of Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca. Time doesn't seem to be a great concern in the case of Covaxin. WHO is clearly taking its time.
That is what is happening. And the question is, why are they taking much longer in the case of Covaxin? This question definitely remains.
Now, at this point, let's come to specifics. The Times of India, in an article published on the 30th of September, which is just 2 days ago, said that your organization, the All India People's Science Network, believes that Covaxin has made a flawed application to the WHO. Can you tell me, why do you believe the application was flawed?
Our conclusion is based on the preprint which the Covaxin has put up. And we believe that their application would be based on the findings that they have reported in the preprint itself. And there are various procedural issues, conclusion issues of the outcomes that appear, and that we have to look into if certain details are required. We can tell our concerns also.
Let's go through your concerns one by one. You've already
Please.
shared them with me on the phone. So let me put them to you one by one so you can explain them to the audience. To begin with, you have concerns about the way Covaxin has handled adverse effects. Can you explain your concerns?
Yes, in its report in the preprint, they merely state that there were these number of adverse effects. For example, that there were 639 amongst vaccinated ones and 60 cases those who received placebo. Now, there is no classification as to what was the nature of the adverse effects, how they were handled. These are essential in a scientific publication. Same comes with the questions of death. And that is where also they report there were 15 deaths, none of which were considered by the investigators to be related to the vaccine or placebo. This has to be explained and justified how this conclusion was arrived at. I believe these are the gaps in the paper, and these would have carried in their application too.
Just to clarify for the audience, let's first take up your concern with deaths.
Yes.
The preprint admits that there were deaths. It gives the number of deaths. I believe it's 15, but it doesn't explain the causes of each of the individual deaths. It simply says that they are not connected to the vaccine. You believe a further explanation of cause of death is essential, and the fact that it's missing is a concern. Have I understood that correctly?
Absolutely. They just list the causes of death, but they do not state them, handle them individually, case by case. That has to be taken up.
Now, in the case of adverse effects, you say that the preprint says that there were 39 in the vaccinated category, but they do not categorize the adverse effects in terms of minor, semi-serious, and serious. You believe that differentiation, that categorization is essential. You can't simply club them all together as adverse effects. Again, have I understood you correctly?
Absolutely, absolutely. These details are definitely required, and not merely stating the numbers, how they were handled finally. And that also has to be stated.
So in terms of deaths and in terms of serious effects, a lot of information that should have been provided has not been provided. That's what you're saying.
Yes, we do that. I do that.
Now, I believe your greatest concern is to do with the efficacy announced in the preprint for the over 60 age group. And let me say, the over 60 age group is the most vulnerable section of the population, the one that is most in need of vaccination. Now, what the preprint does is to say that the efficacy for the over 60 age group is 67.8%, but then it locates this 67.8% figure within a confidence interval that is extremely wide. It stretches from 8% at the low end to 90% at the upper end. You believe that this very wide confidence interval throws into question the 67.8% efficacy. Again, is that correct? And if I've put it correctly, can you explain to the audience why does this wide band throw into question the 67.8% figure?
Yes, I will. These numbers appear in their paper and also in the table that they have given. Now, efficacy is a very important number. It tells that how much protected you are in this particular case from severe cases, from a vaccinated person, how better protected is vis-a-vis a person who is not vaccinated. Now here, if this numbers stretches between 8 and 90, where its permissible range is between 0 and 100, it shows that this number 67.8% is not one with which you can confidently work with, either as a recipient of the vaccine or for the state, which wants to use this vaccine for mass vaccination in order to protect the population being overwhelmed by serious cases. This definitely is a worrying point for us.
So you're saying this huge confidence interval band stretching from 8% at the lower end to 90% at the upper end means that the 67.8% efficacy is not reliable. That's what you're saying, is it?
True, absolutely correct. Absolutely.
Now, in fact, a wide confidence interval band is not just the case when Covaxin announces its efficacy results for the 60 plus age group. You have almost equally wide confidence bands in two other instances of Covaxin results. For instance, they've announced a 65.2% efficacy against the Delta variant, but once again, the confidence interval stretches from 33% at the lower end to 83% at the higher end. And that again is true when they announce a 93.4% efficacy against severe COVID. Here, the confidence interval stretches from 57.1% at the lower end all the way to 99.8% at the upper end. So would you say that both in the case of efficacy against Delta as well as efficacy against severe COVID, the confidence bands are once again so wide that the efficacy figure becomes unreliable? Would you say that?
Yes, certainly. These are so wide, we do not know where to really place it. And on that number, how to work with future plannings and so on. So definitely these are certain points of great concern. That's absolutely correct.
So to sum up, you have, I believe, 4 or 5 different concerns with the efficacy data from phase 3. The first concern is the very wide confidence band surrounding the efficacy for the 60 plus age group. The second concern is the very wide confidence band for the efficacy against Delta. The third is the very wide confidence band for the efficacy against severe COVID. In addition to these 3 concerns, you also feel that inadequate information has been given about serious effects from vaccination. They should have been broken up into minor, semi-serious, and serious. Those details are missing. You also have concerns about the way deaths have been handled. The total number has been given, but we haven't been told the cause of each of the deaths. And again, that was critical information. So basically, you have concerns about the quantum of detail and explanation. And separately, you have concerns about the very wide confidence intervals around the efficacies. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have concerns in terms of both of them, both in qualitative sense as also in terms of quantitative figures.
Now, the audience will be listening to you. I've introduced you as the president of the All India People's Science Network. How serious, they will ask themselves, are these concerns? Can you answer that question? Are these just technical details or are these serious concerns?
These are serious concerns. The technical numbers definitely have to be taken seriously. When we are trying to tell the people that how far one gets protected on being vaccinated versus on not being vaccinated. These numbers, therefore, show us, give us a pointer, and numbers themselves are a matter of concerns. On the other hand, the other fact that was stated, that causes of death, adverse effects, these are just clubbed together and not case by case statement has not been given. Some list of possibilities are given, but case by case and how the adverse cases were handled, that also has not been.
Now, out of fairness for the audience, I should mention that you are relying entirely on the data made available by Bharat Biotech in their preprint paper publishing the phase 3 results of Covaxin. On the basis that this data is the only data given by Bharat Biotech to the World Health Organization, you believe it is grossly inadequate. Is that right?
I would definitely stand by that. It is grossly inadequate, and any professional organization would demand more details.
Is there a possibility, and I'm simply asking this question to cover all possibilities, is there a possibility that Bharat Biotech may have provided more detail to the WHO than it has published in the preprint? Or would you say that since this detail will benefit the company by being widely disseminated, it doesn't make sense if you have more detail not to publish it and share it with the world, and therefore it's unlikely that the WHO has been given more information than is contained in the preprint? Which of the two? Could there be more information given to the WHO, or is that unlikely?
Definitely, WHO would demand more details, and in these cases, since you bring in the business interest too, they would have to comply with it. But for the scientific audience who would benefit from this preprint, we find it extremely inadequate, and hence certain concerns are therefore raised. That is what is really worrying, because the scientific community also deserves more to be known from the Covaxin than what is given in the preprint. This is a serious.
That's very clear. The scientific community believes that the information given in the preprint is extremely inadequate. We don't know whether more separate information was given to the WHO or not, but it does seem strange that if there is more information, the company wouldn't share it with the world, because the company wants to impress the scientific community and remove doubts in the minds of the scientific community, which at the moment, because of inadequate information and data, exists strongly. Let's move on. As I mentioned in my introduction, on the 30th of September, that is 2 days ago, Balram Bhargav, the Director General of the Indian Council of Medical Research, publicly at a press conference said that all the Covaxin data has been given to the World Health Organization. Coincidentally, and perhaps ironically, on that very same date, the 30th of September, we received a text message from a very senior official of the WHO, which said, and I'm quoting, "There are many queries and a bit more back and forth than was expected." So if there are many queries, that clearly means the WHO needs more clarifications. And if it needs more clarifications and details, that could also suggest that they are not comfortable about the data given. They have concerns about the data given by Covaxin. Would you agree?
I would agree with that. This is the first reaction I would get from reading the preprint, which we have all referred to. These gaps, definitely the WHO would demand that fill these gaps, and only then the considerations can be proceeded with. I believe that.
Just for the sake of the audience, I'll point it out with reference to dates. As recently as the 30th of September, 2 days ago, the WHO said they have more queries. If they have more queries 3 months after the preprint was published containing the data, then it clearly suggests that even after 3 months of seeking clarifications, there are still more that are needed. Isn't that so?
That is so. If they are still not satisfied with it, definitely there is more that is to be supplied to them in terms of the basic data.
I have three last questions before I end the interview. As I said, it's 3 months since Bharat Biotech released in a preprint the phase 3 results. 3 months is quite a long time. Are you surprised that in that period, these results have not been published by a peer-reviewed journal? Do you find that surprising?
From the preprint, I don't find it surprising, because to a non-specialist but who is aware of the scientific data, we are quite confident what to ask the authors of papers. And when such gaps are there, definitely any journal would demand these answers. And I'm surprised, though this is a priority area these days, COVID being a priority area, the journals have taken so much time, but definitely the journals would seek all details before they publish anything that deserves to be treated as priority. I would say that definitely those queries, they are investigating.
So if I understand your answer correctly, you're saying the reason why no peer-reviewed journal has published the phase 3 data of Covaxin is because those peer-reviewed journals themselves are not confident of the data and are looking for further answers and clarifications. Hence, no peer-reviewed journal has published them. That's what you're saying, is it?
That's what I'm saying.
Now, the irony is that the Lancet on the 8th of March published the interim phase 2 trials of Covaxin. So given that Lancet published phase 2 in March on the 8th, which is now over 6 months ago, one would expect that Lancet would be interested in publishing phase 3 as well. Yet for 3 months, Lancet hasn't bothered to do so. So even a journal like Lancet, which published Covaxin's phase 2, has not published Covaxin's phase 3, despite the fact 3 months have lapsed.
That is true. And the authors of the paper must definitely take this with due concern and seriousness, not only for themselves, but it is for the scientific world to know that what their investigations lead us to. It is very important that they should take it seriously.
One more question. The Times of India article that came out 2 days ago on the 30th, which I referred to a little earlier, said that your group believes this is a serious setback to India. Can you explain why your group believes that?
We believe that it is a serious setback to Indian science. This is developing a vaccine indigenously is a very important and serious work. And I can see from the preprint that it is a collaboration between 18 groups, including the Covaxin study group and the ICMR. Such collaborations are definitely to be welcomed. But the very fact that the paper has not yet got a publication in an international peer-reviewed journal means that there are certain gaps that are to be filled in order that it matches the international standards. And those standards, no journal is going to compromise. In that respect, it is a setback for our science.
So in a nutshell, you're saying it is a serious setback for India's science because even 3 months after the preprint was published, no peer-reviewed journal has published these results. The fact that no peer-reviewed journal has done so is a serious setback.
And it is a priority area, mind you.
And in a sense, this is underlined by the point I made earlier, that Lancet published the phase 2 results of Covaxin, but has not so far bothered to publish the phase 3. That underlines your point, doesn't it?
Precisely.
My last question, are you worried or apprehensive that Zydus Cadilla's 3-dose vaccine, which was very recently approved by the Drugs Controller General of India, could end up meeting similar problems at the WHO level?
Well, as far as the Zydus Cadila is concerned, it should not be judged in terms of the precedence with Covaxin. It will make its own case and it should be judged by that merit. Nevertheless, this background of Covaxin will always be there. And that will definitely be coming into play in certain judgments by certain refereeing agencies. This risk definitely is there. And of course, the Drug Controller General of India's granting of emergency usage authorization to the Covaxin even before the third phase trial had started, it is always going to haunt us in future. That definitely is going to happen.
You're raising two important points there. You're saying even though the Zydus Cadila vaccine should be judged by its own merits and the precedence of Covaxin shouldn't affect it, nonetheless, in the background of the minds of the people at the WHO who will have to investigate, analyze, and then grant that emergency use authorization to Zydus Cadila, the experience of Covaxin will always be there. There's a danger it could color their judgment or at least color the background. And the second thing you're saying is that the delay by the WHO in granting emergency use authorization, even 3 months after phase 3 results of Covaxin are out, once again raises questions about the fact that in India, the Drug Controller General gave emergency use authorization before phase 3 results were known, well before phase 3 results were known. This has also thrown that decision into question all over again.
Yes, I agree completely with these. Definitely, these are going to be the backgrounds in which the material is going to be judged in terms of the claims by any new drug application or any new vaccine applicant from India.
I thank you for this interview, Dr. Chatterjee. I thank you in particular for explaining your concerns and doubts about the data submitted by Covaxin to the WHO and why you believe it's either insufficient and incomplete in the case of serious effects and in the case of deaths, or why you believe the confidence bands around the efficacy numbers cited are so wide as to throw the efficacy numbers themselves into doubt and question. I should, for the sake of the audience and for the sake of fairness, once again repeat, you are entirely relying on the fact that the information published in the preprint by Covaxin is the only information given to the WHO. There is a possibility, even if it's unlikely, that the company may have given more detail to the WHO than they have released in the preprint. In that case, and we don't know whether that is the case, but in that case, the situation would change and alter. But you did say that it's unlikely that if they have more information, they'll give it to the WHO and not make it public because the scientific community needs also to be informed. And at the moment, on the basis of inadequate information, you believe the scientific community has concerns. I thank you for this, Dr. Chatterjee. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you.